What's going on, Military Cashflow family? How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. It's a nice Saturday morning. Got some coffee going. After this, I'm gonna work just a little bit, and then I think while the weather is still nice, it's supposed to snow here in Charlotte this weekend, which is
You said
insane.
while the weather is nice, bro. What are you talking about?
it ain't too cold just yet. So while the sun is out, I'm gonna try to get outside a little bit because as soon as it starts snowing, I ain't leaving the house, bro. Them days are done. I'm gonna grab my woobie and stay my ass right on the couch.
You feel like I got my smoker's jacket on right now, man.
Yep.
Like it's if you guys, so I have my my mother-in-law here, and she's occupying the office, so she's staying for like a couple months. She wanted to kind of have a little break, so now I had to move my office to the garage. You guys can't tell, like that's why you see black in the background, so you guys don't see a bunch of TA50. But it's cold down here, so I gotta keep my little smoker's jacket on. I got pants on, I got big socks on. I'm like, no, yo, I'm cold out in this garage, dude. So this is what I'm doing for you guys. This is what I'm doing for you guys.
It's the dedication, man. Bro, I love the military has the best like comfort gear, man. It's not like high quality, but damn it speaks to the soul, bro. Some smokers jackets and whoopies. Oh, gotta love it.
Yeah, bro.
What else you up to besides freezing your ass off in the garage?
Nothing much, man. Just we got a 4-day weekend, so I'm just kind of hanging out and finishing up some NBA applications. And that's pretty much it, man. That's my weekend. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty much it. But
applications. I'm excited to see that.
We got a great guest for you guys today, man. I know you guys have probably anyone who's ever closed on something before, I'm sure they had a problem, not a problem, but they thought to themselves, man, like, why is it taking so long to close? Why does it take so long for me to get a clear title? Why does, who is this attorney and what are they doing, man? Well, today we got a great guest for you. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk all about that. We got Solomon Hejirika. He's going to come on and talk all about it from Hejirika Law. And yeah, man, it's going to be a great episode. You guys are going to learn a lot, especially about the legal side of the house and what it takes to close on a home. Mike?
Absolutely, man. So me and Saul go way back. We actually known each other for right under 2 years now. But we play flag football together. You know what I'm saying? Got to showcase my athleticism every now and then. But one thing I love about Saul is he's very transparent about how the process works, guys. And some of the things that he mentions is how literally everything in real estate truly is a business. We always try to pursue customer service as best as possible as real estate professionals. But we are also serving 150 clients, 200, 300 clients at any given time. So there is a sequence. Everybody will find their place in line at time of delivery. So he talks about what they all do on one side of the house, not to include what the brokers do and what the lenders do and everything else, which I think is so important for us moving forward as understanding how we need to negotiate, how we need to understand how that legal system works so we can set expectations up front. So without further ado, man, let's just hop to it and get you this good stuff here.
What's going on, Military Cashflow family? Today we got Solomon Hejirika on. You know what? You do the introduction, man. What's going on? What's going on with you today? And can you let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do in the real estate space?
Cool, man. Don't give me the total floor, man. I'll talk all day. But good morning, man. I'm glad to be on. I love what y'all doing with the podcast, man. I think it's really good to go ahead and give people, especially people you guys are familiar with, knowledge that they don't teach in schools and they don't teach anywhere else, man. So you either have to know somebody to get into the game. But I'm not going to get on my soapbox. But I'm Solomon Hejirika. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland originally. I now live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I practice real estate law, commercial and residential here in Charlotte. Just opened up my own firm and started July. It was a soft open, hard open in August. So I'm here to help real estate investors, realtors, lenders. I feel like that's my plug. I tell everybody that I'm a problem solver. You got a problem in the real estate world and it deals with the legal side, contact me. What else y'all want to know about me?
I think that's a good intro.
Okay,
but,
cool.
We can start kind of diving in a little bit because I'm curious about. I'm curious about like what you do on each side. You said commercial real estate, you said residential. Also checked out your website, and you said business entities as well. So what does that look like as far as the services that you provide, so we can kind of get a good idea of where, some questions that we can ask moving from there.
Okay, yeah. So one of your episodes, man, I checked out. I believe his name was Michael. He was on, and he talked about, you want to go ahead and have your real estate investment backed legally. So, if you're going to go and dump money into something, you want to have it back legally. And I think that's the biggest thing I tell my investors. I have a couple of investor clients. What I do on the legal side is to make sure that you have clean title. I think that's the biggest thing. A little bit about my background. I started at a firm called Brady Kosofsky. They did a lot of REO, refinance stuff. And so my mentor, who actually brought me into the game, told me, hey, look, man, you're going to be there a year. You're going to hate it. But they do so much volume because they serve all 100 counties in North Carolina that you're going to learn the foundation, which is title. And so I think I learned a lot of title, and sure as hell, I was there for just a year, and then I moved on to another firm. But I think that's the biggest thing I provide to you guys, because you don't want to buy a house or you don't want to get into an investment and the person that sold it to you doesn't own it. Because then you try, most of the time people are flipping it, right? If they're trying to do it at Airbnb, or if you're trying to flip it to for family, that family, they want to have that house. That's their investment. So they want clean title, and they're going to go through the proper channels to do so. So I always tell people, man, you want to do things the right way. And that's what we do as a law firm. We check the title, make sure it's accurate. We abide by any lender rules that they may have. And then we go ahead and get everything on record for you guys. We also, in North Carolina, a little different than most states, we're also the settlement agent. So we handle all the money. So the money comes in, we have all the money, we cut checks everybody. So you're not worried about like, am I going to get paid at this end of this transaction? We handle all that, and all the checks come from our trust account. So they're not going to bounce. But that's mainly what we do, man. We give you that peace of mind that if I'm going to throw in 20, 30, 10, 15, $5,000 into a property, I know it's mine.
I love that, because a lot of times people are so hungry to get a deal that as soon as something's presented to them, they're like, oh, I can pay $1,000 and get this deal, and they'll do it. And that person never owned them, right? They got scammed. Another one that's real popular right now, and everybody needs to be aware of this, is you can own a property legitimately. Say you went to Solomon, you got your shit tight. Somebody else can be presenting your deal on Facebook for rent, right? And collect the security deposit and everything else. So you have to go through these, my recommendation is go through these legal entities, go through these professionals that do this for a living. I also love how you said that you had the foundation and the title piece, because I think that's important. Not all attorneys are created equal. Right. You know what I mean? So right. You want to make sure that they got that experience. They actually understand what to look out for. So you're not just going through the book checklist. They actually have real world experience.
I mean, I tell people like this, man, there's bad mechanics, there's bad dentists, there's bad attorneys, man. And so sometimes we're going through all these titles, and what I do isn't glamorous. I mean, I'm on the computer a lot. But when I go through a chain of title, I can see what another attorney's footprint, their work, they got their name on it. You can see who closed it. And sometimes you're like, man, why would so-and-so do this? I had a client the other day, man, where, COVID hit, everybody been home for that year. No one went out, did anything. Her mom passed, left the house to her stepdad and her. The whole year COVID goes by, she lives out in Raleigh. The house is in Raleigh. She lives out in Charlotte. She never went out there, about a 2-hour drive. You're not familiar. She finally goes out there, end of May. The house gone. It's been developed. So not only did her stepdad sell the house, he sold it to a developer. The developer then sold it to a home builder. Home builder then put 2 properties on it, sold it to 2 families. So now she's like, you can't sue the families, right? Because they went through the proper channels. And long story short, man, we're still dealing with it. We have a little bit of deed forgery, which is a felony. So we're dealing with that. But the protection was those builders, those developers, and that family all had title insurance. And that's because they went through their threat. So now the title insurance companies are going to cut her a check. And so that young lady's going to walk away with a check what the house would have been worth, the property would have been worth. And so she's protected that way. But any settlemental value she had to that home is gone because they can't rebuild her mother's house, right? It's gone. So
that is wild.
It's wild, man. The stuff that we see. That's why Mike posted on his Instagram the other day, man. When you learn something new every day, he's like, it's crazy stuff you see, because sometimes I think what we lost track in real estate sometimes with the money is that there's real people behind this stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Right.
people. I mean, for a lot of people, your home is probably going to be your biggest investment in your life.
Yep.
So when I had a staff at Nip Law, I ran his office in Charlotte, in Dilworth before I started my own. I used to tell my staff all the time, man, like, dude, like, you might be annoyed, you might have 30 files floating, but there's people right here, this is the biggest thing in their life right now. And I think that if you look at my website, man, we come from a service heart, and I think that's where we say, hey, we're trying to serve you guys because we know this is your biggest investment.
I think it's extremely important, man. We got to talk about, mindset, mentality, because so many people don't realize just on the legal side, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, we're just on the legal side, how many loopholes you have to jump through just there. We ain't talked yet about the appraisal, what that sucker got to do. We ain't talked about what the lender got to do. We ain't talked about what the realtor got to do. There's a whole bunch of people that all have their hands in the pot. And, as long as everybody comes from a mentality where it's service first, well, we can come to a conclusion, right? But if everybody was just money hungry, it's like, we need to close out, that's when corners start getting cut, so forth and so on.
And you got problems on top of problems.
You got problems on top of problems, and all they do is compound, right?
Yep.
But let me ask you this, man. So I got to know, you came from Baltimore,
right?
Bodymore.
Yeah, okay? Bodymore murder lane.
Yeah, you came from, the streets. No, I'm just playing. So you came from Baltimore, Maryland, man. What was that childhood like? Because I know you played sports. You played sports, damn near your whole life. You grew up in Baltimore. Where in your mind did real estate law kind of come into place where you're like, you know what, hey, this is what I'm doing?
I'm blessed, man. That's what I'll start with. I'm blessed. I grew up with my dad was a warden, so he came up in that correctional that tree. He worked his way up from a correctional officer working night shift all the way up to security chief, all the way to he became one of the first African-born wardens in the state of Maryland. That's a position where you got to get appointed by the governor. So he never turned it off. I always joke. So when he came home, man, I remember one time, man, I'm 13 years old. I'm like, man, I'm not an inmate. And I ran upstairs, you know what I mean? Like, because he never turned it off. So I was blessed, man. And so I grew up in a neighborhood. He didn't become a warden until I got closer to the high school. But as we grew up, man, we grew up in a neighborhood where you either became a drug dealer or a barber. No disrespect to no barbers, but that's a lot of what my boys end up doing. And so I became really good at sports. I'm Nigerian. If you look at my last name, Hejirika. Like I said, my parents were immigrants over here. My dad came over here when he was 18 on a soccer scholarship with Texas Southern. He actually left Texas because of the racism that was going on up there. He actually went to school, got 2 masters, and then people kept getting promoted over him. So he was like, I got to go somewhere else. So he went to Baltimore, and then that's when he was able to grow his career. So sports helped me big time. I was really good at first at soccer. And then I had Coach Rick. I'll never forget him. He passed away now. Saw me running around soccer fields. Like, hey, man, you need to play some football with that kind of aggression. And ever since I was 7 years old, man, I've been playing all the way through college. Played at 2 schools, Seton Hill, which is in Pennsylvania. And then finished up at Geneva College, which is another D2 NIA school in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. But when I was there, man, I saw a lot of guys give checks to people. And when I say give checks to people, anybody that came up and said, hey, I'm an agent. It's a small school, no one's coming to our game. You have a few NFL scouts, but they were 3,000, 4,000, calling their moms in the locker room. Mom, I need a check. And so these agents will take these money and disappear. And so I was like, damn. I was like, man, that's crazy. So in my mind, I wanted to be a sports agent when I went to law school. I looked it up online, and you need a sports management master's, or you need a JD to be a sports agent. And I was like, I'm gonna be a sports agent that helps these small school kids. I don't care if I get you to the Canadian League. You know what I mean? It's still money to play a sport. Got into law school. What's funny is I went to go see one of my boys play at Wake Forest. I'm at a tailgate, and Sal Balsamo was there, and he's the owner of Barrister's Title. And we just got to start chopping it up, man. You know how I am when I start drinking, Mike, start talking. And we having a good time. And he's like, look, man, you're smart, charismatic. You need to get in this real estate game. And I'm like, nah, this is my second year of law school. I'm like, this dude's crazy. I'm like, real estate, that sounds boring as hell. But he was like, look, I started my own law firm. Now look at it. I own my title company. And so for me, I was just like, all right, let me give it a shot. I interned with him one summer. He sat me down, put me on game, and the rest is history, man. I started that firm, Brady Sox, when I first passed the bar. Then I moved on to Coster Law, which is another big firm here in Charlotte. They do a lot of builder closings. I also, while I was in law school, I did closings for McMillan, Strutis, and Markey, which is they're probably the biggest in the game right now. They do a lot of D.R. Horton, Ryan Home closings, and they would just give me $50 a closing. And at first, I had no idea what I was doing, but I think everybody's seen that on Instagram where that guy's like, what does practice do? And the whole crowd says, practice makes perfect. And he's like, oh, destroy that mindset. You know, you seen that? I took that to heart because I feel like that's so real. I'm 31 now, and I feel like my whole life, you know, you're like, man, why am I in this situation? But you're in this situation because practice makes improvement. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of closings in the beginning, man. I had no idea what I was asked. When I was being trained, Ralph McMillan, you can look him up. He's been doing this a long time in Charlotte, I think close to 50 years. He's sitting there, he's training me, and all he's doing is older white dude, he's just sliding papers to people. People were signing, laughing, he's handing keys. I'm like, damn, it's easy. I start sliding papers, people pushing the shit back to me. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, they're like, what's this mean? What's this mean? What's this mean? And so that's how you learn, man. You learn through practice. Everybody's, and when I mean sliding papers, everybody doesn't know, the lender usually requires you to sign a real thick packet, about 100 something pages. If you're going through a traditional lender, even if you're going through a hard money lender, they got documents too. But the attorneys usually the ones to sit down with you and sign those things. So learning, man, that's the whole thing. Coming from Baltimore, man, I think sports helped me and saved me. Grew up in this area called Rosedale, right on the city line. So like, got some boys who are no longer with me here, but I got very lucky or blessed.
That's good, man. That's awesome, man. I want to touch on, you know, your thought into working with a larger firm before starting your own firm, right? And you said it, you mentioned it a couple of times right now, and you were like, hey, I went with a big firm. I'm there for a year, but that's where I get experience from, right? And you get a bunch of experience from. I notice a lot of people, when they get their degree or they get whatever they're going to, they automatically go straight into business. As soon as they have an idea, they're like, all right, I'm going to go start my own thing, right? But it sounds like you decided to do the opposite, go work for somebody else, learn some things, and then go start your thing. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, man, I think that's the sports background. Especially, I remember I had a strength and conditioning coach, man. He said, we're going to teach you the foundation. When you get on the football field, you can ad-lib after you have the foundation, right? Once you know the rules of the game, you can do your own thing personally. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like that's the mindset that I had. I was like, all right, I'm going to go to one of these firms. I'm going to see how they do things, what I like, what I don't like. I think I watched one of your episodes one time. You guys had it on Instagram. The guy said something about like, it's not about the home run. You know, you get out of school, let me go ahead and start my own business. It's not that. I consider that's more of a home run. And those who do it, kudos. But I think the guy said something about like, it's not about the home run, about gaining experience. Mm-hmm. And I think from my experiences, I've met people like Mike, Taylor Kastner, Mike Hosey. I've met those guys through those avenues, through those channels that I probably wouldn't have met if I started my own thing, man. Also, too, I think you can look at how people do things with their personalities. So Brandon Kozowski, everybody has a niche. So the first firm I worked at, they had a deal with Rocket Mortgage. And they did, if you were doing a refinance in North Carolina, you were doing it through Brandon Kozowski. I could sit down and tell you his whole scheme and schematic, how he had it. But this man was a genius, man. I mean, he's still a genius. We would close close to 50, 60 deals a day almost. And that's because the night before, mobile notaries were going to people's houses and closing them. And then they send them to us overnight. And then you would probably have 6 attorneys, 7 attorneys reviewing the documents as if I was there at the closing with you personally. It's on the computer, everything's digital. We're going through it. And if there's any mistakes, we send it back out to the notary. The notary goes correct it, but then we get it on record. So that was his niche. That's how he made his money. The next firm I went to was Costner Law. I said that he was opening up firms in different states because he's following the builders. Ryan Holmes is his main connect. He got that main connect, and he's following Ryan Holmes, NVR Mortgage, if you've ever heard of that. So he did that way. NIP, which is the one that I give a lot of my success to. because he sat me down, taught me the game, gave me the playbook. In fact, when we sat down, when he was recruiting me from Costner, he told me, he was like, look, man, if you ever leave here, you're opening up your own shop. And I was like, okay, cool. I was there for almost 2 years, and he catered towards realtors. And I think that is a business model that I like better. Only because we know what it is. The market's going to ebb and flow, right? You know, if there's no more land, builders ain't building no more. If the interest rates are terrible, people might not refinance anymore. But realtors, no matter what's going on with the market, the realtors are going to sell at least one house, right? And when they sell that one house, you want them to use NIP law or Hejirika law. And so when he sat and taught me that playbook, man, I like that a lot, man. And so it was giving people your cell phone number, answering the phone after hours. My fiance don't really like it that much, but I'm like, look, we out to dinner right now because I am answering this phone call.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? So I think that's my business model, man. And like I said, every step of the way I've been pitched as a problem solver, because I feel like, you know, what we're doing here isn't heart surgery, right? No one's going to die. No lives are really on the line. So there's always a solution to a problem. You might not like, Mike might call me and say, man, this client did X, Y, and Z. How can we solve this? He might not like my answer, but I got an answer for you.
And you know, that's the thing that, you know, we harp on so much here, is that you have to go through those experiences, right? So, you know, we can't downplay that. Yeah, like you mentioned, people can come out of school or whatever and say, I'm gonna start my own journey and do it by themselves. They can. Right. But the fact that you have all that experience behind you, you've seen a lot more, and you were somewhat protected, because if you fucked up, you know, you had
somebody else.
Right. You could be like, he didn't teach you, right? You kind of have that little bit of wiggle room. Right. But when you're on your own, you don't. And so I think it's really important to have that background of experience. And now, like you just said, I come to you with a problem. You said, no, I got an answer. Don't worry, I got an answer. You may not like it, but I got an answer.
Not only that, man, the experience teach you, if you don't know the answer, I know where to go find it. I know where to go find it. I know where to go find it.
Why come kids today, I swear to God, my little sister is back. She's 15 years old, man.
Yeah.
She's like, Mike, how do I do this? I'm like, what'd you do to find it? Like, what did you do? Did you Google it? Did you ask Siri? Or what'd you do? She's like, what, nothing? What do you mean? People don't even know how to look up stuff anymore.
Problem solving is terrible, man. I coached. So what I did was, to expand my brand, is I was like, I got to get out in the community, right? So I coach youth football. I know football. So I was like, and I do it in South Park. It's an affluent area. So I'm rubbing shoulders with the dudes who, you know, they got money. Right. And it's helped me build my business. But a lot of those kids, man, I'm like, all right, look, we're going to do this drill. Work as a team and figure it out. We could be there all day. They won't. Unless you give them direct. So I'm like, you know, Indian runs, the person behind you, blow the whistle, next person go up front. You would think that it would click after a while. Hey, person up front, slow down. Slow down, so we not all down. Man, Mike, it don't click. So we start practicing in July. We usually end around November if we make the playoffs. It don't click till November.
Bro, that's Dan too. For some reason in the military, 19 to 24-year-olds, we do Indian runs. They don't get it either. It's like, bro, slow down.
Bro, man,
a race. You got the one dude trying to get the 300 on the PT score in front. Like, damn, screwed everybody.
It's wild, man. And so problem solving, man. And I think if you have that skill set, it's going to set you aside from everyone else, especially in y'all game and investing, man, because most of the properties got problems with them, you know. Right. So you want to be able to solve those problems. You want to be able to contact somebody who knows how to solve those problems. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is problem solving.
Yeah, man, I think that's a very it's not out there as often, especially with the newer generation, like you were saying, Mike. I think sometimes they kind of got to be taught how to problem solve. Like, they got to see it first, right? They're like, all right, this is what I do when because I do it with my kids all the time. They do the same exact thing. I got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. They come to me with the same stuff. They're like, hey, Daddy, how do I do this? Or Daddy, what do I do this? Well, what do you think you should do? Let's think about it for a second, you know, and maybe you have to teach them how to do it, and then they'll finally start doing it themselves. So it eventually clicks.
You know, I think honestly, this is the only thing that school right now is really good for. It can teach kids how to problem solve potentially, right? If you got a good teacher and things like that, because now law, medical, things like that. Yeah, you got to go to college, right? You have to. But people trying to go get art degrees and everything else, it's fine. Do what you want. I don't care. But I think the process of school is really kind of designed to help you learn how to problem solve, right? The higher in education you go, the more research you got to do. I'm assuming at law school, you had to probably do an ass ton of research to write your papers and everything. You see what I'm saying?
Shit ton.
And that's the only thing that I don't think we're harp on enough to the children, because all kids hate school. It's like, bro, just go get your grades, but just learn how to research. You know, learn how to do it right.
I hated school, man. I tell people all the time, it wasn't for sports, man, I probably wouldn't even gone all the way through. I hated school, bro. My pops would always say, man, you take the test just to pass it and master the subject. And I'm like, yeah, nobody got time to master all this. Like, no.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got to law school, man, where the teaching method is totally different. So it's not like, okay, here's the book. Here's 1 + 1 is 2. Commit that to memory. In law school, they want to teach you a law. They make you read a case, 6, 7, 8 pages, sometimes 10 pages. And so then from that case, you got to discern what the rule was from that case. So that in itself is problem solving, you know? So they're giving you a list of scenarios, how the judge attacked those scenarios, what the judge said his final ruling was. Now you got to read his ruling and find out what the rule is. Reading statutes, the same thing. So, I mean, the kids I coach are 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, junior peewee. And so you're getting to that age where I'm like, man, 2 more years, you'll be in high school. You know what I mean? And so, like, no one's going to hold your hand. So I'm kind of hard on them. And eventually, man, a lot of parents come up and like, hey, thank you. Because I feel like they're missing that these days. But with the Google thing, man, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I go back and forth, man. I get phone calls all the time. Hey, man, I saw this on Google, and I'm on. And once I hear that, I'm like, because I feel like Google has, because we have so much technology right here. We've lost respect for expertise, man. You know what I mean? You guys are an expert in what y'all do, you know? So if I call you and say, Mike, I found this investment property I found on Google that I can do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be like, look, man, I've been doing this for a long, long time. This is what you should do. I get people calls all the time, man. I found this document on LegalZoom. Can I use it?
That's the one.
I'm like, bro, you got to think laws are state specific. Every 50 state got their own thing. The federal government has their own thing. When you found on LegalZoom, is just going to be a basic borderline draft. It's up to you to add.
That's just like, and not to get too political on the whole COVID thing, but that's just like when somebody says, well, I've done my research and I seen that it does it. I was like, what was your research? Was it Google? Yeah, like it's like cool, but that ain't research. So I'm
gonna take Google over a guy who went to school for 9 years studying.
Right,
this shit?
exactly. Especially when it comes to legal stuff like you're talking about, because I mean, if somebody called you today and was like, well, I read statute X7B3, you'd be like, bro, if you don't sit your ass down. Like,
now listen. I don't want people to get it confused, right? Educate yourself. I'm cool with that. Correct. You know what I mean? I obviously don't know everything about everything. I gotta educate myself as too, but at the same time, if I had a title issue and I'm not familiar with it, I'm gonna call my guy Sal, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna sit here and tell him, hey, this is what I looked up. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. That's how you start a conversation. You know what I mean? Not, are you sure? Because I saw on Google this. I'm like, well, man, if you doubting me, why you call me?
Right. Good point.
You know what I mean? So definitely do your own research. But I feel like, make sure you add on to it someone else's expertise that's been doing it in the real world.
I love that. So I do want you to kind of walk us through real briefly, not a whole bunch of detail, but let's talk about an entire file, a real estate file, when it comes into the law office from start all the way to closing. What does that process look like? Who touches the file? How many people? Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna do this without boring you. So I always tell people, look, we're behind the scenes. We're like the elves behind Santa's shop. We're trying to make it happen. What do people see on Instagram are, I closed this house. Here are the keys. Everybody's happy. But the process behind it is this. So for us to start, I always tell people we either need a title request or we need a contract. Those 2 documents right there are going to be key because they're going to give us a starting point as a law firm. The first thing I'm going to do, especially I'm going to tell you about Hejirika Law. I outsourced my title searches. So at NIP Law, we had in-house title search abstractors. Anybody doesn't know, those are people who actually pull chain the title from the county. So if some counties in North Carolina are still in the Stone Age, you either got to go to the courthouse and pull everything, Most counties are now online for some documents, but I outsource mine. So I send it to my guys. They now bring me back. I tell people give me about 2 to 5 business days for title to come back, because they're not just going online and seeing who has the previous deed. Now your lender controls the whole. If we're talking about a traditional transaction, your lender controls the whole thing. Because me as the attorney, I am your attorney as the buyer, but I'm also the seller's attorney as a settlement agent, but I'm also the lender's attorney to make sure they're following all the guidelines that they need to follow federally, Fannie Mae, all that kind of stuff. So they give me, it's almost about 2 pages of guidelines I need to follow. So sometimes they need a 30-year search. If you're FHA loan, they need a 30-year search because they want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with that chain of title. So when we get the file, we'll do those things. The way we do it here is that the buyers and sellers will both get information sheets. Those information sheets, we call them the Bible, because what that information is going to tell me, it's going to have questions like, I need your social, I need your date of birth, I need all that kind of stuff. All that stuff's going to help me with the file. After the abstract gets back, I review it as an attorney. And then what I do is, in North Carolina, we issue to a title company. I give them what's called an attorney's opinion. So I give them my opinion on what happened on title. I can say, hey, it's clean. I can say, hey, there's a deed of trust open. There's a lien. There's a loan. In that title search, we do everything, man. I pull your whole background basically when it comes to that property.
Is there a specific, I'm assuming it's not a website you go to. Is it like something that only closing attorneys have access to, that you find out the very, very background information? I know you say you go to the county. I'm assuming you're just looking at I guess I'm trying to figure out how is that different than just kind of going on the county website yourself and seeing, who is.
That's a great question. You can go on yourself, and most abstractors, the way they've become abstractors is that they learned it on their own. One of the guys that I worked with him at a foreclosure firm, so we pull title for foreclosures, right? You want to make sure everything is clean, and so he was like, I'm done with this, and he started his own abstract company, and that's what they do. They pull title. So yeah, you can go online and pull it yourself. The difference between you and my guy, Richard, is that he knows the flow of how titles should be pulled. And what I mean by that is how the deed should connect, how the deeds of trust should connect, where the satisfaction should connect. We also do judgment checks as well. So that you do need to be an attorney to go ahead or an abstractor to go ahead and have access to that website where it has all the list of all the judgments. So we put your name in the system. We do different name variations because sometimes you might have, they might on the judgment, they might have put your middle name. You might have changed your middle name. And then what we do is any potential judgments that pop up, I let the lender know. I let the title company know. And then what the title company or the lender will tell me how to satisfy that issue. They'll say, hey, listen, let's verify with a social. Make sure the social doesn't match. Or they'll say, hey, we got to satisfy that judgment before we close. So that's how that process goes.
So somebody could do it, but the way that you package it, the way that you communicate it, the way that you fix it,
right?
In theory, somebody could do it themselves, but it takes a lot of expertise. It takes those repetitions.
Well, because here's the problem: you don't want to miss anything.
Exactly.
So there might be, you guys are in a transaction. Mike, you're the seller. You might have opened up you might have got a mortgage when you first bought the house, right? But then you refinance. That mortgage has to be satisfied first, because now the refinance is going to they want to be first in line to get paid if anything went down. But then when you did that refinance, you have so much equity, you're like, man, screw it, let me go get an equity line, right? Yep. All that has to get recorded, because in the process, I don't want to skip steps, but after closing, we do what we call a final title opinion. And so the lenders bug us for it because they want that final title policy issued to them saying, hey, listen, your lien is now protected.
It's a clear close.
Right. So they're like, hey, it's closed. This is way after closing. They want it at least 30 days after closing. But they're saying, hey, that deed of trust is on record. Your lien is now in first lien position, and here's the title insurance to prove it. Right. If Dan's like, all right, I'm buying this house, I don't want to use an attorney. Mike, you said you had a mortgage. Okay, cool. He goes online, he sees the deed of trust, but he might miss the equity line. So now he goes and pays for your property, says $200,000. He's like, all right, look, I'll give you $235, right? So now your loan's 150, you clear the loan and the rest is your profit. Well, that equity line is still open. So now Dan is now taking that property subject to that equity line. If that equity line ever wanted to foreclose on him, Dan's screwed.
Damn,
So
that's
those
a
are
solid point. Yeah.
yeah. So those are the things that like an abstractor will go through. And then sometimes I'll be honest with you, man, sometimes the abstractor might miss it and I'll go through it and I'll catch it. Right. I'm like, hey,
That's the benefit of having multiple people.
That's why you have so many people look at it. And if I don't catch it, the title company will catch it. Right. So that's why you have so many people looking at it.
And then if nobody catches it and yet it's still there, that's what the title insurance is for.
That's what title insurance is for.
Yeah,
so now the title insurance will play that game, just like car insurance. They'll find out whose fault it is. They try to find their best way not to pay out a claim, but they're gonna get the money from somebody.
Right. And then Dan in this scenario would be covered. He'd get his money back or something.
He'd get his money back. Or what they're more likely to do, they'll go ahead and they'll say, hey, the attorney missed it. It's gonna come out of my E&O insurance, right?
Right.
But they're gonna pay the equity line so Dan can keep his house.
Got it.
Yeah, man, I always wanted to know that because I'm like, man, why does it take so long to come back with closing? In my head, I'm like, bro, a title search is so easy. Like I could just look on this. I mean, I knew there were some things as far as like judgments and liens that you have to kind of look up, but I'm like, man, this can't be that hard. Like I know there's a bunch of people behind this, dude. I don't.
So what happens? After
I get calls all the time. I get calls up. Oh, so after title review, we submitted over to
that's
everybody.
where we stop. So what do you
so after title review, we submitted to everybody. So you got the lender's underwriter, and then you got the title company's underwriter, right? They're all going to look at it, and then underwriters, their job is to determine risk. So they're going to say, okay, look, we're going to give this person this much money as a loan. Let's see the risk on this. The title company then issues a title policy. You give that to the lender. That gives the lender a peace of mind. Once the lender has that, most of the time at that moment, we have the clear to close. So we're ready to rock. Then we get all the money. So there's two main rules in North Carolina I always tell people. I'm not allowed to give out any keys or put anything on until we get everything on record. And I'm not allowed to put everything on record till all the money's sitting in my trust account. So I need all the money. I need the lender's money. I need the buyer's cash to close. I need all that in my account before I can do anything. We can sign all documents all we want. So after you get the clear to close and the title policy issued, then the signing part comes up. Everybody comes in, we sign everything, we get everything in order. And then our job continues where we go ahead and we do a final update to title. So I'm going to go back and look at title again to make sure Mike didn't sell the house before we closed, right? Because he could have, or he didn't open a new line of credit before we closed. And I've had that happen before. Someone opened up an equity line after they're under contract with a house. I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? So you update title. Then I go ahead and put your deed from Mike to Dan on record. Then I put Dan's deed of trust, which is going to be his, which is securing his note from the lender on title. So the deed goes first, then the deed of trust. We make sure all the lender requirements are met before we finish the closing. So the biggest thing for the lender is because they most likely want to resell the loan. They want to make sure all the main documents are signed properly. So your, I forget the name of it, but it's the uniform application. They want to make sure that's done because they want to see how you were able to get approved for the loan. The biggest thing is the note. That's the contract between you and the lender. So I always tell people double check that thing. Make sure your interest rate is correct. Make sure your monthly payment is correct. Once you sign that note, it's a wrap. I'm dealing with a case now. Actually, my buddy just called me about a case that he's dealing with, and I helped out with deficiency judgments. So what that means is you might get foreclosed on, but if the lender doesn't get all the money that they were promised in that note, they can file a deficiency judgment and kind of collect it afterwards, if that makes sense. So you got a loan for 150, they foreclose when you only got 120, that 30,000 got to come from somewhere. Now, most of the time, the lenders don't do it because if you weren't able to pay your mortgage, what's the likelihood you got 30 stacks on you? Right. They just call as a loss and then try to resell the property. But sometimes, man, they might come after you for it. So you got to look at all those things, man. And so sometimes, Dan, I always tell people, I always get calls, man, how fast can you close this? And now that I run my own shop, I could probably do things a little faster than when I was with those bigger guys. Because you got to think, at NIP Law, man, it's 7 different offices, right? Mm-hmm. and there's an attorney running each office, and I was doing 8, 9 a day. And if each office is doing that type of volume, you got to remember in a law office, I always tell people we're 30 days behind the market. So if it's popping for y'all, it don't pop for us until 30 days after, because you always put on those contracts, we're closing 30 days later, or you're doing this because y'all got to get appraisal, y'all get all these things. So we're always 30 days after the market. So we'll be super busy, and you got to remember it's in an order. We always close things in the order that we received them. So somebody calls me, hey, Mike, you know what I mean? So I got a list of guys who are my main clients. Mike calls me, hey man, I need you to move this up. I'm going to work on it, right? I'm going to put that to the front of the line, but I always tell my guys, hey, I need this title rushed. They rush it, miss something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
This
is important. And that's why I'm glad you're bringing this up, and why I wanted to kind of dig into this, because both Dan and myself have had plenty of people. I mean, hell, even some of our own deals where we sit back and we're like, why is this taking so long? But again, guys, what Solomon just covered was just on the attorney side, right? So we got a title request or a contract to even start the process. A lot of times people will be calling and be like, hey, can we get this? It's like, well, where's the contract? Well, no, I'm just thinking about buying that. I was like, well, we ain't doing shit. What you think this is like?
Listen, man, now that title search coming out of my pocket. So exactly. I'm not going to order title if you don't got no contract.
And so we got the title searches and all these other things. Then we got to, while the title is waiting to come back, I mean, we still got to get lenders docs, all this other stuff. Then once the title does come back, we got to go under a full review. We got to have the underwriter or the lender from both parties come in and say their things, whatever the case is. Then finally, once we get that policy review, we got the clear to close at that time. But then I love how you said this, as an attorney, you're basically representing all three parties, if you will, buyer, right, seller, and the lender. So right, now you still got to review all of this paperwork. And for anybody who's closed, I don't have any packets in front of me.
Yeah, I should have brought one up.
Oh
too.
My,
it's like a stack.
Damn, them things are thick.
Yeah. And it don't matter. It don't matter what you're closing. So equity line is the only one where it's a little thinner. But right, if you're refinancing, it's almost like you're buying a house all over again.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? So people are like, why's my refi taking so long? And I'm like, whoa. I'm like,
still paperwork.
I'm like, it's still paperwork. I mean, real estate, you can blame real estate for the rainforest, man. I mean, everything's on paper.
Of course.
And so, that's you know what I mean? Like everything's on paper, man. So we I think when you try to tell people the process, they're like, oh, okay. They're like, yeah, but why is it still take? They're like, why is it still taking that long? And I'm like, well, every title is different. The one I just closed on Friday had a foreclosure in it, but the foreclosure firm that did it forgot to add 0.037 acres of the property.
Yep.
So they foreclosed on everything, but one little sliver is up at the lake, but it's like right near. So I guess it must be like a walkway or a dock to walk out into the lake. I'm like, why would you so technically they foreclosed on, let's say they foreclosed on Dan. Technically, Dan still owns that small little part. That part wasn't included. So now I got to tell. So now you know what I'm saying. So now I got to chase down Dan. I got to tell the title company, like, hey, the likelihood of Dan coming back and saying, hey, I want my one little sliver back is very unlikely. So I had to call a couple companies, man. And that's another thing too, man. Everybody assess risk differently, right? So my one title company is like, no, hell no, like get that foreclosure to fix that. I'm like, I don't got time for that, you know. So I go to the next title company. Hey, can y'all? This is a situation. This is what I'm seeing. I'm putting my name on it. Solomon Hejirika law firm. We're saying, hey, we're good to go. Let's get it rocking. Nah, man, we can't get on. All right, cool. I call the next one, and then finally, my boy Brad at Harbor City Title was like, look, man, we'll cover it. Cool, bet. Let's close.
So that's a really good point too, because not everyone's going to be smooth. So some may take you longer. But one thing I love that you said is, everybody, and I want everybody to pause and rewind this as many times as you need to. We are all running a fucking business. That means everybody gets into a line. They're in a queue, period. Not only the attorney, the lender, the agents, the courthouse, everything. So it's not like your situation is the utmost importance because there's 300 clients. There's whatever the case may be.
And you got to balance, you got to balance that thing. So you got to balance that customer service. Like right. I'm trying, you know what I mean? Like, you are my customer. I'm gonna take with the reality of business. Like, bro, I got 60 files. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you try to flip, and then like, you don't want to give excuse, but like COVID, some courthouses were only letting people in one at a time. So I asked her, I'm like, yo, what's going on with this? He's like, bro, I got to make an appointment to go to the courthouse.
Yep.
And if I look on this document online, it's not really clear. I need to go to the courthouse and pull it because you're not suing me 6 years from now. Yep. And that's the thing you got to remember when in these transactions, real estate, my mentor told me, he was like, look, man, it's not the first year. It's not the second year. It's not the third year. It's year 4 and 5, right? 6. Somebody try to sell that thing. And they're like, whoa, Hejirika Law messed up on this. So everything you do now is you try to do it right the first time. That's the one thing I learned at NIP Law, man. Josh Nip taught me that thing. Like, you want to make sure you do it right now, because if you take the time and you might delay closing 2 weeks, that client might be pissed at you. But at least 6 years from now, they're not coming back and being like, Hejirika Law messed up on my title.
That's a great point, man. Like, and I like that you described everything that the attorney, basically from your perspective as a closing attorney, what it looks like for you, right? Because I think anyone out there listening has probably had the same thought, just like we've been talking. Why does it take so long? And we also talked about like, hey, all attorneys aren't built the same. Some will do some things, some will be smooth. So the question for you, what should we be looking for in a closing attorney? What are some like key indicators that we can say, all right, yeah, that's who I should be choosing? Because most people, if you're buying a house, it's not even on you, honestly. Like, I imagine very few people say, yes, I want to use this specific closing attorney, because usually they're doing one transaction every, I don't know, 7, 8 years, whatever it is, right? So usually they don't care about the closing attorney. Usually it's on the realtor. So what should we be looking for?
That's a good question, man. What you should be looking for first and foremost is Hejirika Law symbol. It's round. I knew that was coming. You know what I'm saying? That's what you should be looking for. No, but for real, another thing that I learned was no one Googles real estate attorney, right? Nobody. No one Googles it. No one looks it up. So what I pitch is like, I'm part of the realtor's team. I'm part of the lender's team. Because what happens is when you come in as a client and you're like, man, that was fun. That was smooth. That was easy. You're going to tell your realtor, and then you're going to tell your friends. You know what I'm saying? So it's word of mouth. But what people should be looking for is thoroughness. I think that's the biggest thing. You want to make sure that your closing attorney is thorough. So what I mean by that is they're looking under every single rock. Also, you want to make sure there's a process in place. I think that's the biggest thing to help eliminate mistakes, is that there's a clean process. So from the point when we get that contract to the point where maybe a day or two, the paralegal hits you up with, hey, I need a information sheet signed, to the point to like, you go to like, hey, we got your title back. We're still in X, Y, and Z. There's a process in place. I think there's a process in place, then you can be a little bit more assured that everything's being done correctly. Be wary of, we can get you in next week. You know what I'm saying? I think that right there shows in your closing attorney that they're going to do things to cut corners to get me in next week, right? For us, we always like to set a closing date. December 16th, your closing date. We can move it up if the lender is cool with it, or if everything comes back smooth, we can move it up. But we're setting this date as your closing date. So you can circle that on your calendar. My paralegal will shoot you an email, say December 16th, 4:00. Here's our address. Boom, 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 boom. And then if we need to move up, we can. I think those are things you need to be wary for. But what you need to look for is a thorough process, be thorough, and a process.
You know, I love that you said caution those who say, hey, I can get you in a week. Guys, anybody who says that they can beat whatever the market average is just to get your business, be cautious, man. Right. Be cautious. There's a lot of times, even on the lending side of the house, they'll be like, yeah, we can close in a week. And then all of a sudden, now we're asking for 2 or 3 fucking extensions on the contract because they never could close. That's not what you want. You want expectation management up front. That way, when you go back to the negotiation table, it's like, hey, cool. We all knew this was going to take 30 days. Right. Like, I didn't lie to you and say we're going to take a week, and now you're looking bad. You got the attorney looking bad. You got the real estate agent. Don't do that, guys.
Well, that's the thing, man. Especially to your realtor clients, it's all about presentation, right? So even when you sit down with your realtor, you want your realtor. You don't want to come back and have to explain situations, right? Oh, I need you to sign this addendum so we get an extension. I need you to sign this addendum so we can get this, because it's like, why is that? Why we handle this up front? And so that's why I tell people, look, I want your business, all right, and I'm going to do my best to get your business. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to give you a personal touch. Here's my cell phone number. You know what I mean? Here's my office where we're located. Come in anytime. But if you're telling me, hey, Sal, I need to close this in a week and a half. I mean, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough, especially if in these road counties, you know what I mean, out in the middle of nowhere. That's
you could just, and now I'm just kind of spitballing, but could you say, all right, we could do it in a week. We'll push it to the top of the line, but we're going to charge you three times as much.
I don't. So as an attorney, I can't do that, right?
Okay, all right.
Because the lender, anytime, just to give you a little background, anytime we start a business with a lender, you got to be on their approved list. So I send them. They ask for everything: my E&O insurance. They ask for our policy and procedures. They ask for my fee sheet, and they ask for everything up front. So if a lender gets my prelim CD and sees, oh, whoa, what is this charge for? I got to explain that. Now, what I can do to move you up front is, all right, I'm your guy now, right? So all your deals that you're doing in North Carolina, I'm your guy. You know what I mean? I'm upfront with mine, man. I had a little sales background when I worked at a gym, and you got to hear 3 no's before you move on, right? And that's one thing they drilled into our heads. And so Mike, I ask you for your business all the time. I'm like, what's up? You know, I had no shame in it, because otherwise closed mouths don't get fed, man.
Right.
So if I'm gonna do you this favor, all right, do me one solid word, because our game is volume. Volume. So that's what we're trying to grow. We're trying to grow, and our game is volume.
I got one last question before we start wrapping up. And it's probably really quick, but I know it's something that most listeners are questioning. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the fee sheet, right? Mm-hmm. So is there an industry, essentially kind of like an industry standard about how much fees are going to be, or do they fluctuate heavily between different law firms?
So that's a great question. So professional responsibility is a class we all had to take in law school. One case that always stuck out to me, because I love money, was attorney lost his license because he was overcharging people. And so what that ruling came out was, you have to be around the industry standard. And if you can prove the industry standard, then okay. So Bill Dill is a huge family law attorney in Charlotte. He recently passed away, but he used to charge a crazy amount. But the way he got away with it is because he's like, listen, I'm the best family law attorney in Charlotte. So I'm gonna charge this. And so the court's like, all right, that's the industry standard. And, okay. There was a time way before our time. My mentor said there was a time where real estate attorneys were making 1% of the loan amount. It then changed. There is a flat fee that most attorneys will charge. For us, your traditional closing on the buyer side is about $1,060. That includes a couple, $1,060. That includes a couple of different fees into it. So we got a settlement fee, the title exam fee, and an admin fee. The firms I've been with 4. I've mentioned a couple of them already. Everybody could have pretty much charged around that same price. 2 of my boys that I went to law school with, I'm still boys with them now. Our kids play together. They work at similar firms, real estate firms. They charge pretty much the same thing. Where you're going to see the difference is wire fee. I don't charge a wire fee. I got a great hookup with Fifth Third Bank where they don't charge me for wires if it deals with a transaction. So, but you'll see that stuff on there if you ever. So just go back and look at any of your old deals, your Altas. They explain, your Alta will lay out everything on there better than what your CD would be. Because in the CD, the lender's going to put what like you might see Hejirika Law 1060 on the CD, but on the Alta, you'll see Hejirika Law 1060, settlement fee $695, admin fee $195, and you'll see the whole breakdown on the Alta.
And I think this is super important to understand, because most people don't realize, these fees, this is how you get fed. This is how the company keeps going. You already mentioned once that you outsource your title. So that means you have to pay for that, right? So you have to start to collect these fees. But here's the real kicker here. Let me ask you something.
Okay.
If you start this process, you already have to pay the title company because that's what you need. What happens if they don't close?
That's a great question. Boy, that's a great question. My son eating ramen noodles. That's the answer. That's the answer, man. No, so yeah, I still pay out that title search. So I got a couple, man, this month you just take that as a loss as a company. It sucks, but you take it as a loss as a company. What you bank on is that individual is going to come back with another deal that actually goes through.
Right. And this is something that I want everybody to understand, because as investors or home buyers, most of the time you got blinders on and you're thinking, I want the house. I want the house. I want the house. You don't care about the attorney, about the realtor, about the lender. You really don't. You're just like, I want the house. What you don't realize is by spinning up the cycles, every single one of us spends something. We spend some money, we spend some time. And then at the end of it, you're like, oh, I don't even want to fight for it anymore. I'm done. Instead of having the damn conversation with us about how to save it. Now, this is coming from a personal space, so don't let me rant, goddammit. But look, guys, you have to be conscious that, that money is coming out of Solomon's pocket. That's why
I fight to be a problem solver, man, because I want to close as much as you do. You know what I mean? Right. Your commission might be way more than what I'm making, but at the end of the day, I'm about volume. I'm a volume game. So I wanted to go ahead and close. So that's why we got that admin fee in there. Not only that, man, I'm paying for now we're with UPS, but I pay for your lender once the original's back. Most of these lenders out in the Midwest, right? So they not here in Charlotte. So I'm not driving and dropping it off. I'm paying for and then they want it the next day. So I'm paying overnight, 1 day overnight. So you got to think so my favorite thing at the closing table, man, is when people look down and they're like, why am I paying you this much? I'm like, damn, you ain't say nothing. You ain't say nothing about the 3% to your realtor, but this 1060, you worried about this 1060? I mean, the one dude, man, this was a $580,000 home. So the realtor's taking home 20 something. And I'm like, man, listen, I just went off on the dude. I was like, look, I'm paying for this. I was like, don't ask me about my fee no more, man. But it's cool, man. It's the game we play, man. And so I think it's the rules of the game, man. You got to love it. You got to dive in. I tell everybody all the time, man, everybody's like, oh, well, how do you handle all this stuff? Like they might cancel on you I'm like, man, Jerry Jones said something very, very funny to me one time, man. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And then I heard Steve Harvey say the same thing. He's like, man, like success comes when you're uncomfortable, man. And so as long as you're okay with that stuff, man, you're going to roll with the punches, man. And God's got you, man. And it's going to come back. It all circles back to each other. I mean, I had a client who canceled 2 times on me. And she was like, I'm so sorry. Like my client's definitely going to close. I was like, it's cool. We're going to cover the cost. It's cool. And now, man, she bringing 2-3 deals a month now.
Nice.
You see what I'm saying? Nice. So it all comes back.
All right, man. Hey, so we're gonna wrap this up, man. I love the conversation. Absolutely love the conversation. There's a lot of stuff I just didn't know about the closing side of the house. We're gonna switch up the question just a little bit, right? For those out there buying their home for the first time, what is one piece of advice that you would give them in regards to, closing or really anything?
Biggest thing is get a realtor. I know a lot of people are sitting out here and, I can go online, go on Zillow and find my own house. Get a realtor. And if you have a realtor, make sure they're a good one. Make sure that you do an inspection on the house, man. I got a horror story right now. So your realtor is kind of like, I say like they're the middleman. They know the inspector, they know the attorney, they know the lender. They're gonna get you know what I mean? They're gonna want to put all the pieces together so that you walk away with the house that you want. Got a lady right now, the realtor just, I don't know if she dropped the ball or what, but she has an inspector that she uses all the time. That inspector came out to the house, inspected it, blah, 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 wrote his report up, boom, boom. So there was a little crack in the foundation. He's like, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, the family before that did some renovations to the house, knocked some walls out, messed up the foundation underneath, and the house is sliding. This lady's had her house now for 1.5 years, and she's like, the crack is bigger and bigger and thicker now. So they're going back now. That's not a title issue on the legal side. That's more of a contractual issue. So the inspector's insurance is not going to cover that. But just because it's covered doesn't mean you want to deal with that. The lady has 3 kids. Now what? You gonna move out? You know what I mean? This was your forever home. So I think that's gonna be my advice to everybody, man. Get you a good realtor, talk to your friends, go online. Because that realtor is kind of like that middleman. And everybody keeps saying it's a dying industry, blah, blah, but just because of the internet. But there's things on Zillow, man, that you can't see on Zillow that a realtor could know and do.
I actually really love that, guys, because the realtor, depending on the situation, a lot of times their fee is actually covered from the seller's perspective. Right. So in all sense and purposes, it's kind of free for you, free. Right? That's a whole other conversation. Right. But you want to have that expert kind of there to make sure that you aren't missing that. It really is important. I love that. So soft plug for us, if y'all looking for a realtor, come holler us over at Military Cashflow because we can find one across the nation for you. But with that being said, we got our little soft plug there. Now it's time to plug you, man. Everybody wants to talk to you. How can they find you?
All right, man. So the best way to reach us, man, is www.hejirikalaw.com. You can go on there. You'll have all of our contact info. You can even email me direct. Solomon is my first name, SOLOMON at Hejirika Law, HEJIRIKA law.com. Email me directly. Any questions, I'm always down to listen. Put you on the calendar if you want to do a phone call, man. I do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30-minute convos. If you just want to go ahead and just, hey, man, I got this property. I know you guys got a lot of investors on here. I always advise people, get a title search. I personally, because we outsource ours, we charge $225 for ours. It'll come back in 2 days. If you can, I know a lot of these deals have to be done the next day, but if you can hold on 2 or 3 days, man, get a title search because now you know if the person really owns the property or if there's any judgments on it, anything's going to cost you out of pocket, man. But yeah, that's how you can reach us.
Good stuff, man. That's great. Hey, well, I appreciate the conversation. We both appreciate the conversation. I know our audience is going to get a lot of information out of this. Hopefully they'll walk away with a better understanding and you'll get less questions like, oh, why am I charging this? Where's this 1060 coming from?
It's wild, man. I'm like, man, all the fees on everywhere but the 1060. We good, man.
So hopefully you'll get some. Hopefully you'll be like, oh man, listen to Military Cashflow. I understand now. So
right.
1060. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on and dropping a lot of knowledge. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys having me on, man. I think a lot of stuff, man, is knowledge shared. You know what I mean? Mike, you had somebody who shared the stuff with you. Dan, you had somebody who shared. I had somebody who shared the stuff with me. And so I feel like that's just the rite of passage to share it because, like I said, they don't teach it in schools, man. You don't really learn anywhere else. And this game right here, there's a lot of money to be made. Mike knows I got a little investment side company on the side too, so I'm always plugged in to podcasts like this, man. So y'all doing some good work. So I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share this with somebody else who might need it, who's going through their closing, who's buying their first home and might need to understand some of this information. That'll definitely help them out. You know, if you're listening to us on podcast, leave us a review, leave us a comment down there. We appreciate those as well. Other than that, this is Dan Wynn
and Mike Glassman
signing off.